start with a statement, or should we
Let's just do questions
get
today.
straight to list then?
All right.
With the schedule that you guys coming up, 7 ranked teams out of your 11 remaining opponents, how big are the wins that this team already has in the bank? That, you know, the double overtime win over Arizona, the come from behind win at Cal. What does that do for the team's confidence, having some of those wins already secured?
Well, I think they're necessary. When people have asked me about them, I mean, that's why I used the term massive the other night. I mean, that was a massive win at Cal for us. You know, the Arizona game was vital. You know, that we found a way to win that game against the against the odds in the final minutes. You know, and at the same time, I said it, I'm not surprised by it, based upon the way that we have competed and found ways, you know, each night so far this year. In most nights anyway, you know, and we've said, you know, we don't lose often, but when we do, it's to a top 10 team on their home floor, right? And that's been the case so far this year. You know, so for this group to do what they want to do, and for all of us, you know, we have to beat the teams that we should beat, and we have to find ways to beat teams people don't think we should beat, you know, to go where we want to go. And so the wins that we have, vital towards our confidence and towards our evolution and belief that you need to have, you know, to do things that people don't think you can, you know, where you take it to the next level. And that's, as you've mentioned, we've got as tough a schedule as anybody anywhere. I mean, the toughest schedule, us in Oregon in the pack probably this year, you know, and it is what it is, you know, get better and find a way.
Reagan said that when you down 14 late in the third or mid-third against Cal, there was frustration that some mistakes had been made, but the feeling was different than it would have been a year ago. That there was a feeling that this game wasn't over yet. Are you seeing that belief, like, in the team?
Yeah, I think, you know, another thing that was interesting to me, you know, as we were preparing for this past weekend in the Bay, you know, I went back and watched our game at Stanford last year, and we played incredible last year. I mean, that team had a chance, absolute a chance to win that game. And, you know, it was a 3-point loss, which is the second closest Oregon State's ever played at Stanford. You know, we have that one win and then that loss and another 3-point loss a couple years before that. And obviously a tough place to play, you know, but I was just reminded that, man, we were close last year. And that team, when it elevated, we were good. And this team this year, you know, is the next step. We're able to play longer without mistakes. We just know what we're doing more. You know, a year ago, we were so young at some really key spots. We just felt like we just made too many mistakes over and over, you know, and this team has proven it can close out a team by making the plays on both ends of the floor more often, which breeds confidence and belief. And then we played with that at Cal. I mean, that, you know, I mean, that team, we had an optimism that was necessary for that comeback to happen, you know, which is fun to be a part of.
Awesome. So you're going to play 2 very talented teams over the weekend, looking a little bit more to Sunday and facing Peely. Is it going to be more important that you slow her down, or is it going to be more of a game that she's going to get her buckets, but you're going to have to prevent everything else around from happening?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that you have to be ready for anything. You don't really know exactly how the game's going to evolve. And what I do know is we're going to need more than 55 points, you know, in that game most likely. And I never really like talking about Sunday without talking about Friday. You know, that's a hard thing for a coach to do right there, what you're asking me. But it makes sense that you would. That's going to be true of both games, I should say. You know, we need to get back to scoring the ball and moving the basketball like we're capable of doing, and then shooting our percentages. And that's going to be necessary. I mean, we're playing 2, not just ranked good teams, but veteran teams. I mean, there's a reason they're there. You know, they've been through all the wars. They know who they are in big moments, and we're going to have to overcome that, like we just talked about, like we have in other instances. And so, you know, with good teams, you kind of have to pick your poison a little bit and make those decisions. And as we get better and better as a team, and our experiences, add up and the layers get deeper in our experiences, then I think we'll be able to adjust a little bit more going forward. And I think at home, especially, we'll be able to do that a little bit more, to where I don't think we have to pick just one, going into it. I think we should be and will be ready to change it up, which I think you got to keep good teams off balance a bit.
Speaking a little bit about pace of play and getting above 55 points, how do you feel that pace of play has been this season? Do you feel like you've been consistently meeting your goals in that regard?
Most of the time, most of the time. I think we have a chance to play fast. I mean, this team has the ability to do that. Making teams shoot poor percentages, 35% on the year, we hold our opponents to, leads to transition opportunities. Rebound, outlet, run. We've got posts that can run, we got wings that can run, and we got guards that push it extremely well. And so I think it's a mistake not to be constantly looking in transition. There are teams that disrupt that flow. We like to be one of those teams that disrupts that and doesn't let that happen. And in this conference, that's part of the equation to win, is disrupting anything your opponent does. But we need to be looking for it. So at home, I feel like our transition game has been mostly consistent. On the road, we haven't been very consistent. It's been there, then it hasn't. And, I thought we've played slow at times where we need to increase our pace. You got to give our opponents credit, though. Like I said, look who we've played on the road. Look who those 4 games are against. You got to give them a ton of credit for disrupting us and holding us down, but you kind of figure if you're going to win in this conference, that first number should probably at least start with a 7, and so that would be the goal this weekend for sure.
Awesome.
You're finally ranked.
Hey.
What was that like? When did you find out? How'd that feel?
Yeah, a couple texts on Monday morning. It felt great. I felt like we're worthy. It's felt that way for a little while for us. People will say, well, you don't have that big signature win in the preseason, and I get that. But the way that we're winning, the way that we're competing, the talent that we have that people know about, I've said all year to you guys, it doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think this team is playing like that. I think we have that level of ability. And so it felt like a sooner or later type of thing. If we keep doing what we're doing and keep getting better and finding ways to close out opponents, and that's what's happened. So to come off a loss and get ranked is pretty cool because people recognize the strength of our schedule and what we've done. So I think our numbers and our talent are beginning to speak for themselves, and people are recognizing that this team is something special.
The last time you guys went out on the road, 2 pretty bummer losses. You came back, regrouped with that film session that we talked about with the note cards. Anything similar like that? You switch that up at all, or any other little exercises you're doing with your team in that first film back?
Yeah. We just talked about what it would take to take that next step for us. And I think, my job as a coach is to help them think, help the team think and listen, to know the narratives in their head and to help with that. And so yesterday we just had a really good discussion about, those things that it would take to, take the next step as a group. And, we'd also talked about Stanford. That's a really good team on their home floor, a place they rarely ever lose. And, this is my 14th year doing this. Been there probably 12 or 13 times. And so 1 win. And I've learned it's a great place to learn a lot about yourself. There's no better place that I know of to learn about yourself. Your weaknesses are exposed every time. Your strengths are exposed. And so it's kind of creates this blueprint of where to go every time. And it's always a mistake to feel bad about yourself. Don't feel bad about yourself, coming out of there. You could be disappointed. That's a normal emotion. But to let that linger too long is a mistake, for sure. And so let it go. Let's learn and let's get better. And so that was the discussion yesterday. Then we watched film, things that we did a great job of. the way that they scored against us, and then missed opportunities, that were significant, that once you see it and understand it and how this was avoidable, or, you guys got a great, now you're not going to make all your shots, of course, so don't feel bad you missed, but man, look at the good shots we got. And we were in this game, into the fourth. And so, so my hope is that led to more confidence and belief that, we can be that team that finds a way in games like that.
For sure. You brought up, the expectation of you're going to miss some shots. Dominica didn't in the Cal game. She was perfect from the field. And I listened to you on the radio broadcast. You've talked about it ad nauseum this season about the depth of your guard room. And just because we're going to get Lily here in a minute, I got to ask you again. How are you feeling about this depth, and how are you being able to adjust with it always being a different one of their nights to really show out?
Yeah. It's hard to script. It's one of those things that evolves. A lot of times as games go, and certainly there's evidence that I think any coaches or leader is leaning on. This is what I've observed. This is what has happened in previous times. But everything's always changing. And I believe in all of them. I recruited all of them. I know what they can do. When they're playing at their absolute best, and then I actually see them a little bit beyond that, where they can't see themselves yet, and I'm trying to push them to. And we as coaches are all doing that. And so when we have the opportunity to develop it, and we do, and then when we have to make a decision, you go with your gut instinct on what's going to work. I know Dom wanted to play well that night. Lily's been a big-time performer for us in Pac-12 play last year and this year. And so, to choose them in that moment when we're down with Kennedy at the 1, I thought the pace that they play with and Lily's ability to stretch the floor was important. And Dom and Kennedy have demonstrated the ability to get to the rim against anybody. And that's what we needed in that game. Their decisions are becoming better and better as they're gaining more and more experience, Well, then, you got, AJ, who has an unguardable pull-up jumper that we could go to and has experience as a junior. And you've got Talia, who's our best playmaker, and most experienced guard that we can go to. And then Adley's, obviously proven what she can do over her career. And so there are a lot of options, and so for me, I'm just hoping that I'm making the right decisions that put us in the best situation. And when you have this much depth, it's hard to be 100% sure. It'd be easy if we only had 5 people that can play, but we've got 12 that can play, and it could be their night any night.
Would it be easier if you actually had 5 that could only play?
That decision would be. Yeah, it would make it easier on my decision. It wouldn't be easier in every other category.
Coach, you've actually answered like 3 or 4 questions in my head basically since this whole started, but I do have one that I kind of want to touch on a little bit. Obviously, you talked a little bit about the struggle of shooting in each of the 3 losses on the road against those 3 ranked teams. You guys have shot under 40%. How much credit, again, do you kind of give those 3 teams in those losses, and how much of it is it just a team still kind of growing and learning and figuring out when it's their moment to shoot, when's a good shot, when is it not, and just kind of making some of those decisions on the floor?
Yeah, well, I think that goes together. I think that you have to give our opponent all the credit, all of it. I mean, and they've been, in those games, we've had to move the ball faster than they move, and they moved faster than we moved the ball. They closed too quick. They contested too many shots. So we're taking contested shots instead of wide open. And then when we had wide open, we didn't hit a high enough percentage. I would say that we had enough open shots in all 3 of those games to win the games. I would. I mean, if we did what we could do at the highest. So that's the encouragement. Then I think there's a core belief, do we belong? Should we win this game? Are we in the same category? Where that belief is growing, and I think the wins that we talked about, the Arizona game was a huge one towards that. Villanova at the beginning of the year was a huge one towards that. Taking care of Texas Tech like we did, that's a Big 12 team that has athletes everywhere, and we're up 30, in that game, and everybody knows that. I mean, we played phenomenal until the fourth quarter was a weird quarter. But, then the Cal game the other night, we proved that we can do it on the road. So this belief is growing, and so when that happens, everything, you just tend to relax a little bit once you know you belong. And then that same comfort that we've played with at home, soon will be in those big moments on the road. Then you see more clearly, then the ball moves faster, then the shots get better, And so when the ball moves faster than UCLA moves, you're going to have a chance to beat UCLA, a much better chance anyway. And I feel like our execution's getting there, but you got to give them credit for disrupting us at that point of our season.
You've talked about already how long you've been coaching here at Oregon State. You've seen a lot of teams. You've coached a lot of teams here. You've coached against a lot of teams in this conference. I'm just curious, is this potentially the deepest you feel like the Pac-12 conference has ever been in women's basketball, and potentially the most challenging for you as a coach because of how strong the conference is and the opponents that you were facing in this specific year?
Yeah. I've been asked that question, and I always deflect it for a couple reasons. One, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I have not sat down and just gone through rosters and said, oh, yeah, this group's definitely better, than that, or this 12 is better than that 12. When you think about it, we've had national champions. We've had 2 in the Final Four twice. We've had somebody in the Final Four, it seems, every year. We've had players in our league that have shoes named after them now. We've had the leading scorer in the country. We've had, during the Tara celebration after the game, Shania Gumike's out there. Well, I coached against her for 4 years, and, she's not in our league right now. So I almost feel like it would be disrespectful to say yes, just a blanket, oh, yes, it's the best, it's the deepest. It's hard to say that. What I have said, and I believe this, I think it's the best coached. I do. I believe it's the best coach. And I say that because there's just been so little turnover. It takes a while to get your culture in place and to recruit to who you are, and that, who's doing that? Right, everybody's already there. Arizona State would be the one, that's still in the beginning of the build phase. But Lindsay's a proven commodity, at SC. Who else is new? Everybody's just been there, so every night it's coached so well and coached so well against you. So I would say that. Man, it's a gauntlet. That's the word we've used over the years. I think that absolutely applies. And we've also had schedules very similar to this one. I think 3 years ago, we had a schedule like every night was a top 15 team. And so anyway, so that's the fun of sports and the fun of discussions. And, I'm not going to give you just a yes or no.
No,
I'm
that's
gonna
fine. I
say,
appreciate
I'm not sure.
You got to keep me on my toes, Scott. I do want to kind of touch on that because speaking about Colorado, this is a team that's, again, been building that program, and now they're number 3 in the country. Again, something that we have normally seen from Colorado. You guys obviously take them on this Friday. What's really the biggest challenge you face with them, and what's been most impressive watching them this season, but you guys feel like you could have success against them?
Well, I think we can have success against anybody if we execute. I don't care who it is. I think we have that level of talent and that level of inside and outside game that people have to pick against us. And so I'm not going to say, oh, because it's Colorado or because it's Utah or because it's Stanford or whatever. If we execute and we scheme, we can find ways to compete. This team is, for 3 years now, it's kind of like it's the charade show in a way for me. When I think of Colorado, I think of her. I think of, JR and Toriano, of course, as coaches, and I think of charade. And last year, or before that, it was Hollingshed. It would always seem to play great against us. But I think of charade because I feel her aura, her presence, is Colorado. She's such a fighter. She's tenacious. She sets the tone for the game. She's locked down. I'm watching a game from 2 weeks ago, And we're 30 seconds into the game. I mean, I think this is the other team's first possession of the game, and Sherrod's up, pinning the kid to the sideline, clapping in her face, while the clock's running, and she's on defense, like trying to intimidate, So when I think of Colorado, that's what I think. They want to do anything they can to get in your head and make it a physical, tough fight, and it is that. It's that with them. You gotta, they're coming for you from every angle, sometimes randomly, sometimes, just out of normal help. And so they want to play with that edge. Well, then you've got a really good team around Sherrod, that also falls in line with that. You've got physicality in the post, and you've got guards that just get after you. And then, you've got shooters like Frida and Nolan now and different people that are knocking shots down. And then I think the perfect complement to Sherrod is Weta, and I feel like she's taken her game. I mean, she's the most efficient player on their team if you look at her stats. And I think she's as impactful as anybody else to what they do, So it makes them a challenge to play against, So it's a fun challenge, though, and so it's fun preparing for them and getting our team ready.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Lily Hansford.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Lily.
You guys
good?
Let us know he's ready.
You're good?
Go ahead.
Lily, obviously, I just want to kind of touch off your play off the bench. It just seems like as each game has kind of progressed this season, it just seems like you've been gaining kind of more and more confidence in the wins or the losses. What have you been really feeling like how your game's kind of improved this season?
Yeah, I think this year, any opportunity that I get, I just try to be ready and try to be a spark off the bench. And anything that I can do to provide for this team, that's what I try to do. So.
Awesome. Sorry about that. I do apologize. I didn't expect my phone to be the one that gets delayed. That game against Cal, though, again, the bench was so key between you, Dominica, so many others. When you see this bench and the role that each of you guys brings, how important is that for this team, especially knowing that not every game the starters are going to be able to score, 10, 12, 20 points a game, and knowing that there's going to be moments where you guys are going to have to step up and help this team?
Yeah, I think it's super important. It just kind of shows, like you said, the depth of our team, and just that, it could be anyone's night, any night, and just being able to, back up our teammates, I guess, in that sense.
So we talked with Coach about the film session you guys had afterwards of, the difficulties of playing at Stanford. What did you take specifically from that kind of film session, and how are you guys looking to carry that into a pretty difficult slate coming up?
Yeah, I think it was super important for us to watch that film and see, the areas that we need to improve and the areas that we succeeded in. So I thought it was super important, especially going into this weekend.
The last home game at Arizona State was obviously, there's not many fans, if any, because of the weather. How do you think this first game back against Colorado will be with the fans and that atmosphere?
I think it'll be super electric. I hope Gil really shows out, which I think they will. They usually do every time, so I'm super excited for this weekend.
Coming off the bench, how hard is it to get into a flow of a game that's already started without you, and kind of, feel your way into to playing? And do you like it if, like, you check into the game and 15 seconds later the ball swings to you and you got to shoot it, even this the first time you've even touched it?
Yeah, I think that it's not really like the game starts without you, more as coming off the bench, I don't mind it, actually. It gives you an opportunity to see the game before you go in and see what areas that you can perform at and stuff like that. So being ready is just kind of all it is when you get checked in, yeah.
And it's because, I mean, the three-pointer is one of your weapons, one of the things that you bring to the team. But on any given night, you're probably not going to get 8 or 10 attempts. It's going to be 3 to 4 attempts. How do you, process that or deal with the fact that, I'm not going to get 12 shots to get dialed in. I'm only going to get a couple. Got to make them count.
Right, just efficiency, trying to be efficient with the shots you get and, hitting them, so.
Yeah. And then this schedule down the stretch, this exciting to play this level of competition pretty much every night from here to the, till the Pac-12 tournament?
Yeah, our team is super excited for this weekend and the weekends to come. Kind of like Scott said, this whole conference is coached so well. Every night you need to bring it. So, we're super excited for the weeks to come.
Lily, I know no one obviously likes losing. It's something that I think humans in general hate. But there's always something to be learned from these losses, the losses to a USC, a UCLA, a Stanford. What do you feel like you've learned most in those losses yourself personally? And what do you think the team has learned most that going down the stretch when you face these teams again here at home in Gill that you can maybe get the better of them the next time you guys see them?
Yeah, personally, I think one thing that I learned is that it is, extremely hard to play away. On the road is hard, and you have to have a different level of focus for those games. I think our team learned, similar to that, as well as you have to take full advantage of the opportunities you get, because there were, kind of like Scott said again, a lot of open shots that we didn't hit. So just being able to make those in future games, I think, is important.
Do you guys kind of have those conversations when you're on the road, like you said, knowing that, hey, we have to be mentally tougher and stuff? Maybe it's a pregame speech or it's the night before shoot around or something like that, that you guys come together as a group and you're learning that we have to be more focused. And how is that, I guess, growth period going for you? Are you guys getting more focused, it seems like, with each road game that you guys are facing?
Yeah, I would say before each game we do huddle up and, talk about how we need to be focused and things like that. So that is something that we talk about, yeah.
Awesome. So this week you've been at home, a little bit more time to rest and prepare. What is your pregame meal when it comes to game day?
Yeah, we get a pregame meal made for us. So usually it's some type of like pasta and chicken. So that's usually what we eat for pregame.
Love it.
You're talking like Michael Scott, penne pasta?
Yeah. Red sauce, white sauce, chicken.
Yeah, usually red sauce, but yeah, no, it's good. The meals are good, so.
Glad you're well fed.
Thank you.
All good? Thank you, Lil.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Go Beavs.